Maybe let me introduce our next presenter. That's a fourth presenter for today. And his name is Sada. And Sada, so he has a 15 years of experience in various roles in pharma. And Sada currently leading the data management team in Clienta Research. He worked with several organizations like earlier with Novartis, TCS, Accenture. Has a master's degree in biotechnology from Bangalore University and MBA from Osmani University. So Sada is going to walk through us on the impact of COVID-19 outbreak and the mitigation plans. With that, I hand over to Sada.
Yeah, thank you, Hanumanta, for the nice introduction. Am I audible clearly, Hanumanta?
Yes, you can go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, good morning all. Thank you for attending this webinar, especially on a holiday. So many thanks for your time. So today I will briefly give you the overview of outbreak of COVID-19 outbreak on biometrics and its mitigation. So just before starting the presentation, a small disclaimer that all the views and opinions expressed in this presentation are solely those of presenter and does not reflect the views of Clienta Research in any means. Yeah, to begin with, I will start with the slogan which is very popular nowadays due to COVID-19, which is stay home and stay safe. And everyone are advised to stay home during these difficult situations during the spread of COVID-19. And because of this initiative, like staying home, specifically clinical trials are very much disrupted because the subjects are unable to reach the clinical sites, and also the site staff are also unable to visit the site. So because of this, clinical trials are definitely disrupted to a larger extent. Because collection of data has become a challenge. Subsequently it also impacted other activities which are data driven, such as data management, biostats, statistical programming, SDTM mapping, and also the CSR submissions. Just to show you the impact of clinical trials which have stopped globally. From the period of December 2019 till August 31st, 2020, almost 4,024 clinical trials have been stopped globally. And out of these, nearly 40% of the trials, which comes to nearly 1,670, these trials are stopped only because of COVID-19. Yeah, and out of these 40% of clinical trials which have stopped globally due to COVID-19, 4 major therapeutic areas are mostly impacted. These therapeutic areas are oncology, cardiovascular, neurologic, and pain-related therapeutic areas. So these 4 therapeutic areas itself, they contribute to around 49% of the overall clinical trials stopped due to COVID-19. So this is we can consider as very huge impact to the clinical trial industry, and in terms of revenue, it is around more than $10 billion of loss of revenue happened during this period. Yeah, in terms of the stages where the studies are, the COVID-19 has impacted differently. For example, if we take new studies which are going to begin during after the COVID breakout, for those studies, maybe it might be imperative to include COVID-19 testing as part of inclusion exclusion criteria. That might be one of the major update expected to the new protocols. And coming to the ongoing studies, these are the studies which are mostly impacted due to COVID-19, wherein initially the studies were started at the sites, and subjects were able to reach out to the sites, and the site staff were able to assess the screening tests and inclusion exclusion criteria, and the sites would have taken informed consent. But due to COVID-19, in between, uh, subjects are not able to reach the site, and similarly the site staff also. So in this case, in order to continue the already started studies, we may need to follow a remote approach, which we may call it as a hybrid approach, wherein the remaining study would be conducted remotely using virtual assessments. And when it comes to completed studies, there will be very minimal, or I can say no impact to the completed studies. However, there might be minimal impact, wherein if we want to review any source data for any data analysis, so we might not get the source data from the sites because the sites are closed due to COVID. So overall, the impact for completed studies is very minimal. So in the coming slides, we'll discuss about a few challenges, major challenges which we are facing for, especially for collecting data and for data analysis. And we'll focus on the challenges and what the regulatory authorities are suggesting or recommending us, and what will be the mitigation, how to mitigate the challenge. So I have highlighted a few challenges, not all, but yeah, these are the major challenges we are facing in day-to-day activities. So the first major challenge is the missing visits. Due to COVID-19 outbreak, subjects are not able to visit the sites, and even if their few subjects are able to make out, they are most of the time the window periods are being skipped. That means the subject was not able to come to the site in a specified window period. So this is leading to a lot of missing data and missing visits by the subjects, and also increasing the number of unscheduled visits. And what the regulatory guidance is recommending us, like it is like quite common that subjects might miss the visits and the scheduled window periods. So it is not in the it is beyond the control of the site or any other authority. So to mitigate this, regulatory guidance says, at least if not we are not able to capture the data, we can at least provide a provision to provide a reason for missing the visit or missing any data. So what happens is, if we can provide that reason, which includes even the COVID-19, in this case, when we are doing the data analysis, there might not be many questions arising out of missing data, because we have the answer provided already, like this data is missed due to COVID-19 impact. Yeah, another challenge is impact on safety and efficacy data. We all know that we conduct clinical trials majorly to know the safety and safety of the subject, and also the efficacy of the drug which is being investigated. So these are the major investigations which are done for most of the clinical trials. Yeah. So when it comes to safety assessments, uh, even though subjects are not able to visit the site or take the assessments, it is the responsibility of the site staff or the sponsors to know about the safety of the subjects. So we need to capture the safety data even after the study, even during the follow-up visits also. So in this case, for safety related assessments, regulatory guidance says that we can directly perform the safety related assessments even through virtually, like telephonic visits or video calls. And we, after conducting the assessment, we can inform the IRB and IEC that due to COVID-19, we have followed an alternate approach to capture the safety data. So that means we can implement the safety measurements first and then inform the authorities accordingly. And coming to efficacy assessments, uh, before conducting any assessment, any alternate assessment due to COVID-19, we need to approach the local regulatories and take the opinion of whether the alternative approach is agreed or not, is acceptable or not by the regulatory authorities. For safety assessments, the mitigation would be like to conduct telephonic or video contact visits, refer to nearby clinical sites. For example, subject is not able to reach out to the site. The sponsor can always suggest the subject to go to the nearby site, which is qualified, and take the assessments when it comes to safety assessment. And we can always increase the use of local labs instead of central labs, because say when it comes to central labs, all the samples from local labs needs to be shifted to the central lab for assessment, for analysis. So nowadays, due to COVID-19, even the travel restrictions are in place, due to which the supply chain management is also impacted, so that the local labs are unable to ship the samples to the central lab. So in this case, it is recommended to use local labs as far as possible. And coming to efficacy assessment, subject screening at subject's location. So instead of subjects coming to the site, even the site staff may reach out to the subject and conduct few assessments related to the study. So this we usually call this process as patient centricity or decentralization, moving from site to the subject's location. And we can also encourage remote data collection through eCOA and use of ePros via mobile application. Use of portable sensory devices, example smart watches, Fitbits, to monitor HR, pulse rate, and BP, etc. So we can make more and more use of these sensory devices to collect the data from the subjects. Yeah, another challenge we discuss about is monitors. Not only the subjects, even the clinical trial monitors are not able to visit the sites to perform the review of source documents. And in this case, regulatory guidance says if planned on-site monitoring visits are no longer possible, sponsors should consider optimizing use of central and remote monitoring programs to maintain oversight of clinical sites. So if it is not possible for the clinical monitors to reach out to the sites, it is recommended by regulatory authorities that the CRAs can go for remote monitoring or even the risk-based monitoring approach, wherein they can have the documents scanned and sent it to the from sites to CRA, and wherein the CRA can review the source documents against the data in the database. Yeah, when we say remote monitoring, the another question arises like how to perform remote monitoring while maintaining data privacy. Yeah, so as I said, sites can always scan the source documents and send it to the CRAs for remote monitoring. So here, how do we protect the data, personally identifiable information of the subject? So in this case, it is for open label studies. I think there will not be major challenge. But when it comes to blinded studies, we should make sure that the blinded data is not is being anonymized appropriately, and yeah, so that the CRA would not be able to see the patient identifiable information. And we can also, if in under the mitigation, we can also try to include the file upload and view feature in the ADC tool itself, so that because the ADC tool is 21 CFR compliant, and we have the login credentials, individual login credentials. So in that case, I think the blinded data and the data privacy is well maintained. Coming to another challenge, which is the protocol deviations. While conducting a telephonic or video contact calls or visits, uh, which is not mentioned in the protocol earlier. So for these visits, like, is it necessary to file a protocol deviation? So this is a major challenge. So what regulatory guidance says, a listing of uh, all study data that are deviations from the protocol due to the current COVID-19 situation generally would be acceptable. So, since we are not able to perform the normal site assessments, we are going for a virtual assessments, including telephonic and video contact visits. So, regulatory authorities are accepting these visits when provided we have to provide a listing of all these visits which are conducted virtually, maybe in the study reports or in the annual reports. So mitigation, how to mitigate this challenge. So address how protocol deviations related to COVID-19 will be handled for the pre-specified analysis in the SAP. So in the statistical analysis plan itself, we can include these that the information that so and so visits will be conducted telephonically or through video contact due to COVID-19 situation. So if we can mention that, this is acceptable by the regulatory guidance. Conduct telephonic video contact visits as per requirement and mention as PDs in CSR. So we can conduct those visits, and we can also mention them as protocol deviations in the clinical study reports. Another challenge is about protocol amendments. Whether protocol amendments need to be done to include COVID-19 testing procedures. Yeah, so for the studies which have started already and which are ongoing, in between we have faced the COVID-19 situation wherein the subjects are not able to visit the site. So in this case, if we want to continue the study, whether we need to conduct COVID-19 test for the ongoing studies. So I think it is obvious that when a subject comes for the in-between visits to continue the study, we definitely COVID-19 test should be conducted so that it will not spread to the other subjects participating in the study. So this should be completed. So if we are including this COVID-19 test, is the protocol amendment required? So regulatory guidance says that the COVID-19 test is more kind of a safety to assess the safety of the subject. So for assessing the safety of the subject, it can be implemented directly, and there is no need of protocol amendment just for including the COVID-19 testing. And they have specifically mentioned that for pausing a clinical trial, for example, clinical trial has started earlier, and now it has been paused, and it's going to continue after a few months. So in this case, regulatory guidance says the protocol amendment is not required. And how to mitigate this challenge? So to include COVID-19 test procedure, however, subject is not able to reach the site. So we can have a COVID-19 terms questionnaire sent it to the subject either through website or through online or through mobile apps, and ask the subject to enter the COVID-19 symptoms questionnaire, and thereby we can collect the data from the subject.
Sada, you have 5 more minutes to come to the wrapping up the session.
Yes, Anmant, I'll go through the slides quickly. Thank you. Yeah, and apart from the technical challenges, we also are facing few operational challenges in terms of conducting the clinical trials and also even working remotely. So few of the challenges are moving from office working to home working. So which is kind of new type of work culture. Earlier, only few organizations used to have the work from home option, but now I think almost all the employees of all the companies, they are working from home, and yeah, the work life balancing is becoming a challenge nowadays. And reduced face-to-face interaction. So when we are at the office, many of the discussions happen with direct interactions, face-to-face interactions, and many solutions would have been achieved very quickly. But due to reduced face-to-face interaction, so the virtual contact has been increased. For example, the current conference, the webinar which we are doing it is through virtual conference. And technical challenges, yeah, as we are working remotely, our internet speed, all these also matter. Nowadays, it has become we are as good as our performance is as good as our internet quality and capacity. So that's how it has become now. So there are a lot of technical challenges, especially in the meetings and the conferences. So due to which the communication gaps are increasing. Yeah, as I discussed, the challenges in communication also. And apart from that, there are some personal COVID-19 related issues also, wherein the employees working from home, their relatives or parents, some of them are being tested positive for COVID-19. And this has been impacting the emotional status of the employees who are working remotely. So this is also one of the major challenges. Yeah, overall, I can say that we are in the clinical trials, we are slowly experiencing a paradigm shift. I can say we are slowly moving from a site-centric approach to more of a subject-centric approach. For example, we are moving from site or investigated centric protocol to subject centric protocol. Like nowadays, most of the data is being asked to be collected from the subjects itself, by the subject itself in the form of questionnaires and smartwatches, etc. So most of the data is coming from the subjects directly. So in this case, we are moving from site or investigator-centric protocol to subject-centric protocol. And similarly, we are moving from subject recruitment at site to social media recruitment or community recruitments. from informed consent taken at site to e-consent video, subject screening at site to subject screening at subject's location, IP dosing at the site to IP dosing at subject's location. And also to continue with from we are moving from source data collection at site to collecting directly data directly through e-source, and collecting PRO data on paper to more use of electronic PROs, and SDV at site. Instead of doing source data verification at site, we are moving towards remote monitoring and risk-based monitoring approaches. And last but not least, we are moving from office working to home working. So this is all I would like to uh, convey. Thank you very much for all your time, and open to questions if any.
Thank you, Sada. So there are a couple of questions. We have 3 more minutes. I'll read out whatever. Yeah. How are we? I mean, right now, yeah. The question is like how to handle missing visit date due to COVID in STTMP mapping. This is from Sweta Payer.
Okay. Yeah. As I said, like due to missing visits, the scheduled subjects are not able to attend the visits at a scheduled window period. So because of this, the date of visits are out of the window periods, and these dates maybe we can consider these visits under the unscheduled visits, and we can collect the data under the unscheduled visit category. Even the mapping should occur in the SGTM format under the unscheduled visits. Maybe I have answered the question.
Okay. There's one more question from Madhur. We have right. So we know that remote monitoring is a major challenge of data security. How do you think this can be mitigated?
Yes, yeah. As we discussed, remote monitoring is possible provided data anonymization is properly in place. So we, for example, we in one of the EDC tools, we have this feature wherein site staff or the PI can upload the source documents, and before it reaches to the CRA, there will be a QC step where the CRC or the clinical trial monitor will make sure that the patient identifiable information is protected and it is anonymized. And once it is done, it will reach to the CRA, and the CRA can view the data, not instead of downloading it. CRA can only view the data against the data captured in the database. In this way, we can protect the data, personally patient identifier information.
Okay. Okay. So there is one more question from. I think we can take one more question. There are a few more questions coming up. Sada, I will just move that question under your folder. You can feel free to answer them individually. But I'll read out one last question here. As you have mentioned about the mitigation plan for the safety and efficacy data collection, however, there is a major concern on the data traceability. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, Pandyan. Yeah, that's a good question. Traceability is always the basic necessity of any clinical trial, any data collected during the clinical trial. So it is even applicable for the safety and efficacy data. So we are only changing the approach of collecting the safety and efficacy data, wherein earlier we used to have those data collection at site, but now we are having the same data collection virtually. like through telephonic visit and video contact visits, and use of more of gadgets like smartwatches, etc. So even these out of these approaches, we can generate data, and which is always traceable. So even if we take out data from a smartwatch or any other reports, the data which is updated will be timestamped. So in this way, we can always have the traceability.
Great. Thank you, Sada. So in the interest of time, we will move to the next presentation. Meanwhile, I'm just moving all these questions into your folder under the Q&A. Please check and please respond to the respective audience, participants.
Yes,
Okay.
thanks
So,
very much.
Hanamanda, over to you.
Okay. Thanks, Sada, for giving a very insightful views about the data collection conducting during this pandemic situation for all the clinical trials. Very much helpful information. What I understand is from your talk, it's mandatory that all the patients has to go through the COVID test, which is coming as a mandatory. And missing visit is a gray area for most of the sponsors. I'm sure some more guidelines are expected to come. So that's interesting thing. So with that, thank you, Sada. Thank you very much for all the information. Let me move on to the next presenter. The next presentation is also into the similar lines.